Well, hello, and welcome to Opal City Confidential, a Starman podcast, episode 21. It is time for another Times Past, and I have my guest, David Steele from Earth 2 Podcast. When you say hello, David.
Hello, Ross. Thank you for having me. It's nice to be back.
Oh, I'm excited. We're using the time machine to move forward, and we're recording well in advance. There are about 7 episodes I have not recorded, but we had a window. And I'm not going to say why we had a window, but you will know if you listen to the Earth 2 podcast by now why me and him had to record today. But it's a good thing. I needed a little mental health day, so talking Starman with David is going to be great. So this story is Times Past. Let me look up in the Grand Comic database and DC Wiki because neither of them have enough information, so I'm using them both. Okay, this was released on July 20th, 1995. It is cover date. You're going to have to tell me the cover date because my covers don't have dates.
It's cover dated September 1995.
September 1995. I am almost, I will soon reach my 21st birthday, and my Oakland A's will have won their last World Series as of now.
It's 21 in 1995. That can't be right.
No, 31. Oh shit, that's right, 31. Oh, never mind. Now I'm old, and
I was 22 in 1995, and at this point I was working part-time in a bank, 3.5 hours a day, and also doing Sundays in a comic shop in Forbidden Planet in Glasgow. So that's what I was doing at this point. Yeah.
I think I was slinging fucking coffee at the hospital and killing myself building sets.
Brilliant.
Oh, oof. All right. So, script. This is called 13 Years Ago, 5 Friends. It is a Times Past issue. Written by James Robinson, guest pencils by Matt Smith, and he also does the inks, but it's not the Matt Smith I share a birthday with. And he drives around in a used to drive around in a TARDIS. Colors by Gregory Wright. Letters by Gaspar Saladino. Damn, this guy Jasper's been around forever at this point.
Right.
He did most of the lettering of the Legion I'm covering, and I still haven't gotten to the 70s yet.
Wow.
He did he's done some stuff. This book has been reprinted 3 times, a Times Past trade, the hardcover Omnibus Volume 1 and the softcover Omnibus 1. It is a JSA story, basically.
Yeah.
With the Shade. Now I'm going to go to the DC Wiki because it has a very short synopsis, and I'm not going to do a long one because we're just going to kind of go through it and talk about it. The Shade writes his journal how many years ago. Let me edit this. Shade writes in his journal how many years ago Starman, Green Lantern, Hourman, Flash, and Dr. Midnight fought off Ragdoll and his minions from Opal City. Even though the Ragdoll was killed during the confrontation, his body disappeared from the morgue the following day. So main characters are the Shade and Ted Knight. Guest stars Green Lantern, Hourman, Flash, Dr. Midnight. Mentioned Billy O'Dare, Joan Garrick, David Knight, Jack Knight. Antagonist Ragdoll and the Ragdoll cult. And a mention of the Gambler. Matt Smith. I want to start with the art because I really do like the art.
Okay.
What else has Matt Smith done? The name is not hitting my brain.
No, I'm because Peter and I know another Matt Smith who does some comic podcasting. There's a lot of Matt Smiths around. I'm not sure. There's a definite touch of the Mike Mignola's to him, I think.
I did too, and I also got a little of Matt Wagner from him.
Sure. Yeah. Got you.
The blockiness.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what else he's done. I didn't think to look that up in
advance. While we're chatting,
if you're listening.
I'm clicking a link. So, but I like it. I like that the Time Pass are all drawn differently. It gives it a more Golden Age feel because it's a little, and I'm going to get fussed at because probably someone's going to hear me say this, but there's a lot of Golden Age comics that looked a bit rushed.
Mm-hmm.
That's
fair.
There are others that is, there's a difference. He drew the Day of Judgment miniseries.
So he did, of course. That's right. I remember a scene with Hourman and Mr. Terrific in that. Yeah, that's right.
Which I barely remember. so I may have to check that out on the app.
Yeah, that's the one when Hal Jordan ends up as the Spectre at the end of it.
Oh, okay. And I like that plot. I was one of those people that got beat up for saying that. Like, oh, he would never go crazy. His hometown got nuked. Yeah, you go crazy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's called grief, man.
I remember thinking that was a brilliant idea because, Ostrander had written Jim Corrigan out peacefully and neatly and all that, and Spectre was hanging around. And, making Hal Jordan the Spectre, get him on his path to redemption. Brilliant idea.
Yeah, see, that's the way I saw it. Is he was hurt, and you need to to make Hal interesting. You had to knock him down and have him dig himself out. It's called character development. I liked it. But I'd like the art in this. What do you think? As before we get into it.
I like it as well. It's not to my normal taste, but I think it suits the story. And as I think we've said in the past, the Times Past stories were sort of the built-in sort of fill-in stories where Tony Harris got a month off.
Yeah.
Or Peter got a month off so that they could get someone else in to draw these other stories, which meant that, they factored them in whenever they felt like it almost, but it meant that they could keep the regular rhythm and the main stuff going. I like it. I mean, it's not... if I was being entirely honest, would I pick it if I was getting a story illustrated myself? No, but it suits it. There's some really nice images, which we'll talk about as we go through it.
Yeah,
it's interesting to see the way he interprets J. Garrick's speed and the way that Alan operates his power ring. It's interesting.
Yeah, and what I like about the way they do this is because I went into Starman knowing a lot about Earth 2.
Sure.
I didn't know a lot about Starman.
Mm-hmm.
But for the casual reader who picked this up early, because it is a new character, it's a new way to learn. And this is a shorthand every 6-7 issues to educate them.
Yeah.
Who are the friends? Because I was doing homework because of coming up one episode, I'm going to cover all the Starman appearances in All Star Comics. Yeah. He was in it a lot longer than I remembered it. He's only in almost half of their appearances, it seems.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in those comics, they act chummy, but the friendships aren't earned as they are in, I think, and I'm going to, Jeff Johns and people who, when they made Hippolyta, the Wonder Woman of the 40s, they were doing all this retroactive continuity, folks. They've been doing it. It's not new. But to make all the friendships that they've been showing all these years have value. Does that make sense? That it's earned.
What you mean? Yeah, because remember the Justice Society Returns story from 1999 when they, prior to them launching JSA, that did quite a lot. It built on, Hourman and Dr. Midnight's friendship. It built on Flash and Mr. Terrific's relationship. It breathed them all out, and that was a good thing about Starman and JSA running at the same time, was that if you go back and read some issues of All Star Squadron, they're almost like blank slates, a lot of the characters, even if you read the Golden Age.
Roy doesn't lean into them. He leans into the non-characters. I don't think he didn't feel he could, I can't alter. And it's like, well, there's not a lot to alter.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's what delights of Matt Wagner with Starman Mystery Theatre and James Robinson working on Starman, Jeff and James working on JSA. They weren't afraid to try and put some meat on the bones of these guys and, make them a bit more believable as people. And this is a really good issue for it.
It is.
I mean, one thing I want to talk about, I'll get this out of the way. This issue was published a year to the week that 0 Hour issue 3 was published, which was that the 1994 summer crossover. One of the things it did was it killed off half of the JSA, took them off the table again before they gradually, crept back up a few years later. So this was published a year to the week since Hourman and Dr. Midnight had been killed off. So that's an interesting thing to bear in mind. But also, right slap bang in the middle of this being published, Hourman is the guest lead character in 4 issues of Sandman Mystery Theatre.
Oh, wow.
Published between June and September 1995, around about issue 32, 33, around about then. So there was this feeling through the 90s that even though they killed Hourman off in 0 Hour, he didn't really go away. He turns up in Starman a few times, pops up in Sandman Mystery Theatre a few times. He's the lead character in Justice Society Returns. to bring everyone in. Tom Pyre's Our Man comic is going on at that point, and he's used in that.
God, what a great comic!
Yeah, I love it. And then of course they run about 2005. They rescued him, and so he wasn't dead. So he kind of almost had a renaissance in the 90s, and it's almost like it seemed to be inspired by him being killed off. But this is quite early on in it, and I think it's worth remembering that in Zero Hour they basically tried to write the JSA out of continuity again.
Yeah, for the second time.
Yeah. Second time, like, since obviously after Crisis. The Mike Parabeck series hadn't been very well received, or DC editorial didn't want it to keep going. They didn't want it to...
Don't get me started on that one, because
yeah. But you've got to remember, Mark Waid was using Jay regularly in the Flash. Alan was popping up in Green Lantern under Darryl Banks and Ron Mars, so they weren't, they still popped up, but it was almost as though James Robinson was sort of straight away sort of going, I didn't like what they did killing off Our Man and Dr. Midnight. I'm going to start using them in Starman, because these characters are liked and they're popular. Because Our Man, from what we said about All Star Squadron, Our Man is a character that was developed quite well in that. And I think the real seeds of the Rex naissance, if you like, are here in Starman 11. And it's I remember one of my friends and mentors in the Glasgow sort of comic community, Steve Montgomery, showing me the advertisement in DC's Direct Currents, sort of holding it up and showing me the cover for this issue of Starman a couple of months before it was published, and we were both like, yes, Our Man's coming back. Well, can't keep a good man down.
I think it's great, because greatest costume, it's probably one of the best costumes ever.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, and I read the Pyre Our Man religiously. I kept it as a series. I had it. Yeah. I've never given it up. It's kind of like All Star and Infinity and certain series that haven't been reprinted for fucking who knows why. So I had it, but because I never liked Rick's son in Infinity.
Right.
And Pyre having him deadish. Mm-hmm. Was he dead? It was weird. But I really liked what Johns did when he brought him back and made him an actual Hour Man.
Yeah.
And not in that terrible McFarlane costume. But I like Rick, and I think didn't Pyre bring him back from the dead?
Yeah, Pyre used him a little bit. Put some conflict between him and the android at the start. But then I think Rick first pops up in JSA. It's a couple of years into JSA. It's the Stealing Thunder storyline.
Yeah.
When I think it's Sandy or Icicle. It's Sandy, I think, gets woken up from a suspended animation, and Rick's one of the new JSA, and then he gets folded into the team proper. Develops a relationship with Jesse, which was seeded in the Parabeck series, which is nice.
Yeah.
I think it has their first meeting. So
that Parabeck series is a gem.
Yeah.
And they need to put it in a hardcover like they keep promising.
Yeah.
But let's get to this. I like this because, again, it starts with the Shade. The Shade telling us a story. I love that. I do love that. And the thing with the Ragdoll, there is something about Golden Age villains that, I'm triple jointed. How's that a superpower? You know what I mean? But I like that this takes place sometime, they say 15 years ago from the day, so this would have been 1980.
Yeah, because this is the whole way that the DC sort of timeline had been rebooted after Zero Hour. It was always that way, that Superman and Batman had only appeared comparatively recently, but the Golden Age guys had been around. So this is James fitting this into the new timeline that's been set up. Superman and I think there's a mention of Batman in this one. Yeah,
they talk about Batman being the new one, and Alan's like, my city's different.
Yeah,
we have a new champion.
Yeah. So because we all know the Silver Age basically ran from the 50s into the 60s, but in this rebooted timeline, everything's a bit more recent because they've had to give was it Julie Schwartz put it, give the universe another enema.
Yeah, basically. But I like what they do with the Ragdoll, because like on page 1 you've got the split thing of the Shade writing the journal, and you seeing somebody who's been killed hung by a flagpole with a Ragdoll thing in, And the Ragdoll building a cult and them all having his face on their T-shirts, and one person has him tattooed to their face.
Yeah.
That it's very much like they take him from being some just petty thief that the Flash has to defeat every so many issues to being not like Manson in the fact that he's crazy and does this, but that he uses it as a way to build power for himself.
Yeah.
He finds a way, I can build a cult and do what I want.
I was reminded of someone when I read this again this afternoon. You know, I was reminded of 45. You know.
40. Oh yeah.
And his MAGA speechifying and all that sort of stuff. I'm not gonna use his name.
No, I don't. The big, the spray tan douchebag.
Yes.
Well, yeah. But no, it is. It's the cult of personality. The cult of personality.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's that makes the Ragdoll terrifying. And I don't know if you read Gail Simone. I think we may have talked about Gail Simone's Secret Six.
No, I think we have talked about it. I haven't read it because I think is it his son or something that's used in that.
It's his grandson. It's his grandson. And it's one. I love Gail Simone. I've never read a Gail Simone comic. I didn't go, well, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I rank it up there with Ostrander's Suicide Squad. I mean, that's how good it is. And that's the first time for me that the Ragdoll works because he's the grandson and he wasn't born with the triple joints.
Right.
He had surgeons do hundreds of surgeries on him to give him the ability.
I have this on a shelf. I have Volume 2 of Secret Six, Volume 2, The Gauntlet, on a shelf. So
that's the third volume, because Villains United is the first volume.
Right.
And I covered that with Kirby, and it was a wonderful reread. It is a wonderful reread.
I need to do some more digging. I think Peter's recommended that to me before as well.
Yeah, if you like Ostrander's Suicide Squad, you will love Simone's Secret Six. But this is the first time I thought the Ragdoll was a good villain, because he was a scary villain.
Prior to this, I think he had not had many appearances at all. He turns up in an issue of All Flash.
I remember.
No, sorry, it's Flash Comics. And I think Roy used him in All Star Squadron.
He did.
He's one issue of the Flash in the 70s with a team up between Barry and Jay, and then he's in one of the JLA JSA team ups.
Yeah, it's a Perez one. It's the second. Yeah, it's the second Perez one.
Running about 195, 96, running about then.
Yeah.
So he's not been used very often, but the good thing about Ragdoll, he's a very strong visual character. So that's I think, that lends him to being used again, I think, because, it's easy for people to appropriate his image. And because isn't there a point quite early on, you might have covered this, you probably will have covered this by the time that we release this episode. Isn't there an issue where Jack is wearing a sweatshirt with the Ragdoll image on it?
Ted gets pissed.
Ted gets annoyed at him.
Yeah, because you don't know what you're talking about, because he's remembering something we haven't seen yet.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I like the montage, the origin montage page.
Yes.
Do it in one page, no panels.
Yeah.
Just zigzag through the silhouette of the city that gives you an idea of the unique architecture of Opal City.
Absolutely.
The great lady in these stories. Mm-hmm. You see how old the guy is, and you see that he's attracted a group. Because on the next panel, it's a family of cultists who have just killed somebody. Mm-hmm. And the dad's got the kid's wearing the shirt, and the dad's got the face tattooed on his forehead.
Yeah. And it's they make the point on page 2, offering the lost and lonely a leader and a direction to take their empty lives, and those lonely people listened. It's 30 years later, practically, and you think, nothing's really changed in the world.
It hasn't. I mean, I don't know how you are on American films, but there's a movie called Elmer Gantry. Shirley Jones from the Partridge Family won her Academy Award for it.
Right.
So it's Burt Lancaster, and he's a preacher. And she's the whore with the heart of gold, which is if you wanted to win an Oscar in the 50s, 60s, or 70s as a woman, you had to play a whore. It was awful. But the movie's amazing because, one, it's Burt Lancaster, and she's amazing in it. But there's this, and then there is, and I cannot remember the name of it, there's a movie, Andy Griffith, before he was famous for Mayberry, he had done a play called No Time for Sergeants, a comedy, because he was a stand-up comedian.
Okay.
But then he did a movie with Patricia Neal, English actress, the wife of Ragdoll.
Okay.
Two-time Oscar winner, wonderful actress. But she plays a marketing exec, and he plays a radio personality who realizes he can manipulate people and get the crowd to love him. And he goes from being this sweet yokel who has a heart of gold to being a maniacal, evil piece of shit. And it's Andy Griffith, Matlock. I don't know if you've ever seen Matlock, but Andy Griffith, that wholesome American kind of comedian, and he is absolutely terrifying. And that's what I see, is this guy dressed as a rag doll who manipulates people into doing the most horrible things. Yeah. And all because they didn't get what they wanted.
Yeah, because there's page 2 of panel 3, there's a church being set on fire.
Oh, yeah, because there is no church but the rag doll, kind of. That's the way I took it.
That's still the sort of thing that is going on, and kind of, I'm going to have to cough loudly, mate. You have to edit this bit, sorry.
That's all right. Hope you didn't get the bug.
Along at the top of my voice at the show I was working last night.
I got you.
I'm a bit throaty today. I mean, church burning still, even though, religion doesn't matter to people as much as it used to do, it's still a very potent image.
I live in the city. Yeah.
Going wrong.
Because I live in the South, man. They burn churches during civil rights,
Yeah.
In Atlanta, someone burned 6 little girls to death. So, Yeah. But it gives you, and then I like, there's a lot of very not static, because the art's not static, but panel design, no panels, 4 equal size panels in quadrants. Yeah. And the 4th panel is, we hear the beginning of the conversation between them, the Justice Society, and then I love this double page spread.
It's fantastic.
And it just opens up. It's just the 5 of them standing around a table, with the title, 13 years ago, 5 friends, a tale of times past. And it's these 5 friends. And I'm blanking, and I don't have it in front of me, but Our Man wasn't in All-Star Squadron long, was he?
He pops up. He's not in it at the start. He turns up in issue.
No, Our Man's in the first one. I mean, Our Man. Did I say the wrong name?
Hang on.
I'm saying Our Man wasn't in it long.
In All-Star Squadron, do you mean?
No, in All-Star Comics.
No, right, okay, right. All-Star Comics, yeah. Yeah, he's gone by, like, issue 8, isn't he?
And Ted and...
that's when Ted and Chuck come in, yeah.
Okay, that's because their company wasn't part of the deal anymore, right?
Yeah, I don't think Our Man was as popular. And that was the thing. I think he was more popular in the 90s after they killed him off than he ever was at any point in his career. He didn't linger for too long in the Golden Age. He wasn't around for very long at all.
He's a lot in the Silver Age. He's in a lot of the team-ups. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think he was. I don't know. Maybe he was just out of time. I don't know. I mean, I always say he's my favourite DC superhero. I think he's brilliant, and this comes from all the stories that were done with him in the 90s. I find him very inspirational, but I'll leave that for another conversation.
Okay, well, there's going to be a lot of him coming up. So,
yeah.
But I like it, and I like it that it's just, there's only 2 words on the panel. We come. It's the end sentence of the last panel. And then this, I like that this is these next few pages are very Dave Gibbons, Watchmen, kind of the 9-panel layout.
Yeah, it's very 5 years later Legion, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Especially the the bottom panels of pages 6 and 7 is that it's almost like the camera sweeps across the conversation. But we should talk a bit more about the double spread, because I love the way that the angle poised lamp is pointing down at the desk, and then they're all standing in the spotlight, and they're all moody and shadowed, and it looks very, very dramatic. Alan's holding a piece of paper which casts another shadow over him, and it's all wrapped around them. It's brilliant.
I like that Smith's use of solid black.
Yes.
He's not afraid to go, that's in shadow, it's just solid black.
Yeah.
Because there's a roughness, a sketchiness to his art. And he allows you to feel because that desk lamp is all the light on them is bouncing off this table.
Yeah.
It's not coming from above.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bubble of darkness around them, and you see it reflected on their backs.
Yeah, because the panels at the bottom of page 6 are tremendous, because all you see of Alan and Ted and Rex and Chuck is just their backs, and the only one you see lit up is Jay, because he's the only one that's catching the light.
And it's only on half his face.
Yeah, and it's, as you say, panel 7 of page 6 is almost total blackness, just apart from a little bit of green and red for Dr. Midnight, a tiny bit of yellow for Our Man.
Yeah,
and if you look at Ted in panel 8, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, what I really love, we're a witness to this conversation.
Yes.
He's not telling us, because this isn't about action. This is about desperation a little bit. Like Ted doesn't have control of the situation.
Yeah.
It's out of control. Him and the O'Dares and Chief Allen have lost control. Mm-hmm. And I need my friends to come and help, because this is bad.
Yeah, because Ted talks about the police being stretched thin and all that, and and how he had to get everyone in, and they're all quite glad to be there. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. The close-ups of their faces, that they're all very distinct, and I like it when Jay takes off the helmet or his tin hat.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can see that it looks as though his hair's starting to recede a little bit. Alan looks the same. They're not afraid to show them as the middle-aged men that they are at this point.
Yeah, and I think that's on purpose in a lot of ways, because they've been heroes now. This is, if it's 15 years and it's 95, so it's 1980. They've been heroes for 40 years.
Yeah.
And we know their aging is slowed because of Ian Caracal, or whatever his name.
And the Speed Force keeps Jay young, and the Starheart works its wonders on Alan, and all that stuff.
Yeah. So, but they're desperate, and the world has changed around them, because think about how different the world was between 1940 and 1980.
Yes.
Yeah, the 40s, the Second World War for half of it, and then the 50s is about the world. It's different for us. We were a booming utopia of commercialism and freedom in America, and you guys were digging out. Europe's digging itself out of destruction.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Britain was repairing after the war and all that sort of stuff.
I mean, rationing didn't end until what? Almost 1960.
I'm not sure. I can never remember.
Yeah. But I think
it's there's still like bomb sites. The term bomb site was still part of the common parley, because there was so many. I mean, where Peter lives, actually, in Clydebank, was devastated by German bombing during the war. Like London, there's a lot of new buildings in London that were built in the 50s and 60s to replace all the old buildings that were flattened.
Yeah.
So we're absolutely digging ourselves out of a hole.
Yeah.
We had that in Britain. There was the positivity of the 60s. Harold Wilson and his white heat and all that sort of stuff. There's a bit of, and then of course the 70s it all came crashing down. But that's for another conversation.
And then the 80s was a little bit of a darker time. It's like Alan Moore and Frank Miller. They kind of go. They both said that I wrote those dark, broody comics in the 80s because it was a dark and broody time. It reflected how we all felt. Mm-hmm. And I like that we're seeing that these are old-fashioned heroes in a situation that doesn't fit their normal narrative.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're aware. I mean, there's that brilliant panel we talked about it before we started. Like, the first panel of page 7, when Green Lantern talks about Batman, and he's obviously referring to the Joker.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's quite interesting, because they're aware that the world is changing around them, and that their approach might be a little bit old-fashioned, or they're all concerned that they've got what it takes, and they're still going to have the ability to take down this bad guy.
Oh yeah, and that's what I like. And I like when we get to the next 2 pages. There's something I really want to talk about, and I'm going to read. We haven't read much of what they're saying, but there's a lot going on, and I'll use my Ted voice, which I've been using today. When they go to this heroic pose at the hilltop, I freaking love it because they
Yeah.
question it, and they walk outside of the observatory on the top of the hill, and Ted goes, "So we have the night to accomplish much. In the morning, if all goes well, we'll meet again. And remember, the past with lighter hearts."
Yes.
And they've divvied up their assignments.
Yeah.
Our man's gonna go stop this mob on a bridge. Dr. Midnight's gonna save kidnapped twins, which sounds like a 50s. And the other and Ted, Alan, and Jay are gonna go find the Ragdoll. And what I love is this on the next page where it's just 6 panels.
Yes.
And it's the 5 heroes and our narrator is going, "I wonder what they thought as they went to their fates, these men. I can, Green Lantern. I will, Our Man. I dare, Jay. I shall, Charles, Dr. Midnight. I must, Starman."
Yep.
And then the shade just like in a silhouette. There are these things they did when we were kids where they put you, I forget what it's called, where they take a profile of a kid and they cut it out as a shadow and frame it.
Cool.
I had mine that was done at Disneyland.
Cameo? Is that it?
That's it. It's called a cameo. And I've got my mother had one made of all of her children because there were she had one of herself, her sister, her 2 sisters, and we've done them for some grandchildren, but she had all 6 of her children up on the wall.
Nice.
Yeah, and I have mine. It's in a cabinet right behind me with my grandfather's stuff. But I like that that's kind of what we see of the shade. And he goes, "I wonder what."
Yeah, because he's not privy to their thoughts, but we're allowed to be, and it's great because you see Alan and he's flexing, and he's thinking, "I can," because he is supremely confident.
And also, isn't his power like like Cal's willpower?
Yeah, exactly. And Rex is knows that once he pops his pill, he'll be in the zone, and he's like,
our man never doubts his ability.
He's motivating himself. He's getting himself into the frame of mind, and then Jay with the twinkles in his eye, it's almost like it's a game to him.
Yeah.
But then Dr. Midnight, looking very moody and intense, almost Batman-like actually, and he's like, "I shall." And then Ted, who's obviously, because it's his city that's suffering, "I must." It's brilliant.
It's a beautiful page. It's an incredibly beautiful page.
Very effective.
And then we cut to Charles McNider's adventure, and I love this. Is you got these idiot cult members with another guy with the Ragdoll tattooed on his face, and they're just talking crap, and all of a sudden he jumps in and throws out the blackout bomb. And I love how the blackout bomb on the next page or wherever it is everybody's in color blues and grays.
Yeah. Because it contrasts well, because when you first see them, they're all lit from this lamp overhead, and there's a kind of warm yellow glow.
And they're all in yellows and ambers.
Then, as you say, Chuck releases the bomb, and it's just like, it's very effective. It's obviously, it's turned the lights out, and it's very moody. It's the banality of their conversation. The bad guys talking about having enough money to have 3 warm meals a day, and they're obviously, there's no real ideological motivation for them. They just want the money.
Yeah, it's just that's what we're gonna do for our livelihood, and
Yeah.
that they're so petty. Like when the bad guy in the second page, he's holding the 2 twins and he's got the gun pointing at him, but he's not smart enough to realize that but Dr. Midnight's behind him. And he doesn't really give a crap what you're saying because he just pulls him out of the dark.
Yeah.
And I like it because there's no narration. We're not if you notice, we don't have any narration of anything the Shade doesn't see.
That's true.
There's absolutely no narration.
Yeah, that's great. That's a real good point. Yeah, because we're not really privy to. I'm going to cough again. Edit point. Sorry. Yeah, that's a great point because we're not privy to Chuck's thoughts while he has this fight. We just see the bad guy babbling, and Dr. Midnight is just this silent, dark Avenger. And
then we have what Shade is assuming happens after he has saved the kids. Midnight would smile if he was one for smiling, the saving of innocence, the sweetest of feelings.
Yeah.
And then we cut to Ted, Jay, and Alan, and we get some more wonderful narration from the Shade as they're being lowered. They're going down to where they think Ragdoll is, and you know, and
yeah, because we skipped over it, but there's a point when Ted says how he'd received a note and printed in vanishing ink or disappearing ink, which gave them the clues to where they were. So then we see the Shade preparing this note.
Is he preparing the note, or is he preparing absinthe?
I don't know. I thought he was preparing.
No, that's how he's getting tore up. He's pouring absinthe over a sugar cube.
To me, that's probably, you're right. Actually, he's probably having a little drink as he writes his journal. That's right. I just assumed that he was kind of that shows my clean living naivety.
I've never had absinthe, but I just heard if you do it. Yeah.
Ross, I tried it once, and around about the time Starman was being published, I tried it once in a bar in Glasgow. It was a night out with some work folks, and the only way I can describe it is it was kind of like something got unhooked at the back of my brain. It was lovely.
Okay, no. I freely admit that I did some drugs, and I know that sensation. I did mezcal. I did mescaline once.
Right.
Only did it once.
Okay.
We ate it, and we started watching the 1966 Batman movie.
Right.
And it kicked in about the last 10 minutes.
Right.
But
okay.
I tripped balls for 12 straight hours. I mean, it wasn't just it goes up, it just turns on. But something's unlocked in the back of your brain for 12 hours. You're very alert. You are very hippy-dippy.
Yeah.
You don't see it, but you have opinions on everything. But I can imagine that's what absinthe is like. He says, all of a sudden I was alert and I was energized.
Yeah. See, absinthe, that has that sort of aniseed taste to it, so it's not particularly pleasant if you don't like aniseed. But I remember it felt like it wasn't like a massive change of perception or anything, but it just felt, oh, this is nice. I feel a little bit more relaxed than usual. This is going to be a good night.
Yeah.
But you're right, that's what he's doing, because I remember the barman doing the thing with the sugar cube and all that. I'd assumed that was the Shade preparing the invisible ink. That shows my naivety, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. and we did skip something. Let's go back. I'm going to go back to that little narration of his, because he talks about what he's been doing. Where is it? Come on, Ross.
Oh, that's right, at the very beginning, yes.
At the very beginning, yes. He's talking about it. And I was away at the time. That's why he doesn't know what happened.
Yes.
Firstly, when my rogue's itch needed scratching, and I went forth for some sport twice then Barry Allen and I met in skirmishes. He beats me squarely and soundly, one of those times too, though I let him win the other. And then I played hero for a week. Kent Nelson, he of the yellow and blue and the magical ways, had need of my singular talents.
That's right.
But that's another tale, another time, and not of Opal. In the city that summer, an acid-stinging summer, that things were malevolent, umbragish, and drastic. So, so he was away when this happened, and he's putting it together after the fact.
Yeah. That's him referring to the story from Showcase, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Transmission tower and all that,
Yeah. And then the next thing is your guy, standing on a bridge between a mob. I love this. Rex Tyler had a task. He chose it, and he stood determined and ready. But he had a problem. To get to the Grail, the Ragdoll's mob had to cross the bridge. There lay the problem. The mob had all night to walk these 40 yards of concrete and steel. And then Ted's going, come on then. Tyler had 1 hour to stop them. Let's get this done. 12 minutes. 27 minutes. And then we see the fight over 7 total panels. And it jumps in time. We get a countdown.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's he's at 12 minutes, then he's been fighting for 27 minutes, then he's been fighting for 39, 45 minutes and 15 seconds, then for 56 minutes, 57 minutes and 58, and then 59. and he starts to wind down. Yeah, because Rex is protecting a sort of retirement home, basically from the mob.
Yeah.
And if you're a listener to the Earth 2 podcast, you can kind of take a drink at this point because there's a nice crescent moon hanging in the background for a couple of panels. It's very effective. But I like the way that Rex's sort of grin. Is it a grin or is it just determination look that he has in panel 2?
I know. I think this is their hint about the drug, because everybody wants to lean into the drug addiction of the miracle pill.
Yeah.
That I think it gives him a buzz. It gives him super strength, and it also gives him. Rex is a confident man.
Yeah.
He is. I only have my power for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I have to do everything in a lot of time, and he just beat the crap out of about 200 people.
Yeah.
So
Super.
yeah, I think he's feeling proud of himself. I succeeded.
Yeah.
My science won the day because he's the science hero. He's, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. He's a chemist,
that kind of thing from the 40s and 50s and 60s. Reed Richards, science hero.
Mm-hmm.
Hank Pym, science hero. I mean, Tony Stark. But but it's really a 40s and 50s kind of motif. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, as I said earlier on, so much was done to develop his characterization after he died. Like stuff in this, stuff in the Tom Pyre Our Man series is wonderful. The Starman Mystery Theater.
I don't think that's in. I have only volume 1 of that, so I've only read the first arc and the Starman arc.
Right.
So I don't know if it's in it. They're collecting all that in compendiums.
Yes. Yeah.
I got the top 10 compendium this week.
Fingers crossed that they do follow through and publish them, because I think they've started to collect Sandman Mystery Theater about 5 times or something.
Yeah, well, I've noticed that they've actually they've solicited some more omnis and stuff. I think they've done their corner cutting, and they're now starting to publish. They realize I think they had someone do analysis. Marvel makes a boatload of money selling to people with disposable income $125 hardcover volumes, and they buy the shit out. They have their own podcasts and YouTube channels, all based on it.
Yeah.
So, and I bought a few. I've got one in the mail now. First half of the Busick Avengers run.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it also has Avengers Forever in there.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So, but now on to the main battle, which is these three very close friends.
Very quickly before we jump to that, I just want to highlight the final panel of page 16 as Rex thinks to himself, "It feels so good to be alive." And I think that's a little dig at the fact they killed him off a year earlier.
That's Robinson going, "You're idiots for killing him."
Yeah. Exactly.
But
exactly. But page 17 is a beauty.
Isn't it? I love how he does the Flash moving. It's just 3 different images of the Flash.
Yeah, it's cracking.
No blurry lines. It's just what you would perceive if someone was running super fast at you. You would.
Yep.
There'd be an after image. And Ted and Alan flying.
Sorry, I spoke over you there. Go ahead.
I just love how he's got them positioned in this kind of curve.
Mm-hmm.
And the page is off like kilter by about 30 degrees.
Yeah, and the archways, the archway entrances to the windows to the buildings. You see the inky blue night sky out the back. It's very, very effective. Ted's blasting his cosmic rod, and that's lighting up the room. And Alan's gesticulating and creating a giant hand to swat down some baddies. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I love it. And I love it. It's beautiful single page spread.
Yeah, it's so stylistically different from the sort of way that you normally see it. I mean, you're so used to these guys being drawn by the likes of Carmine Infantino or Murphy Anderson. So seeing them drawn in this, as we discussed earlier, the sort of blockish Mike Mignola-esque way, it's really interesting. It's almost like gives them a real freshness is the wrong word for it, but it makes them a little bit more unusual.
Yeah, it does. It doesn't. It's not as clean. There's a thing about. I mean, and I love Silver Age art.
Yeah.
That it is very clean, very not sterile, but everything is precise and accurate.
Yeah, very fresh, very crisp.
Yeah, but this is these heroes in a dark time, so we have to see it in a dark way. And there's still all there's shadows throughout this book. I think the only time there are not a lot of shadows is when we're outside.
Yeah.
Because you've got that purple sky, that purple bluish sky.
Yeah, because I suppose, the inside of this building's in darkness, I think, really, isn't it? The only light we're getting is the reflection, not the reflection, that's the wrong word, but whatever's created by Ted's cosmic rod or by Alan's ring.
Yeah, well, it is a reflection because light hitting the floor is going to bounce.
Yeah, yeah.
So it'll, I've done scenic design and lighting design, but I always like someone who, put a nice sheen on a stage floor. And if you want to make the room cold, I mean, blue makes it cold, but you want it to hit the floor and you want the blue uplight.
Yeah.
Because it'll make it look colder and darker, and it'll put shadows here. People can't see me, but like on their chest.
Yeah.
So that's kind of it. So if you do white, it will have a yellowish kind of, an amber or something, put that nice little bubble of light around them. And that's kind of what I think it's doing.
Mm-hmm.
But
I mean, it's the stage metaphor's actually quite good, because even the way that the rest of it plays out, you can imagine Ted and Jay and Alan stood round Ragdoll in the centre of a stage with a spotlight on them, and they're just maybe moving in and out of the spotlight and barely being seen. Lighting is the use of lighting in this is a big part of the storytelling. Actually, it's a lot more than you'd normally sort of pay attention to.
Yeah, he's
a big part of it.
Yeah, him.
Matt Smith knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he does. And then the colorist. Hold on, let's give him his dues. Gregory Wright, who is the colorist for most of the run of the series, isn't he?
Yeah. I think so.
And color plays a huhuge part.
Yeah,
because Tony Harris likes to mix up his color. He likes to use a lot of oranges and browns and earth tones. Because he even does it in his Liberty Files.
Right. Yeah. Liberty.
So funny. That's a whole separate podcast.
Yes. One quick thing I'll make, one quick point I'll make about colouring actually is the slight difference in the colouring of our man's costume, because his sort of his feet and ankles are all entirely yellow when there should be a bit of red. And I wonder if that's deliberate just to make him look as if he's changed his costume, or if it's a mistake. But I'm going with the sense that
I think it's a less I think Matt Smith is pulling some detail out of stuff because it's not necessary.
Yeah.
Perez would have the black boots with the red little things that are supposed to be laces or whatever.
Yeah. I like what Matt's done there. It's made him. It's mixed it up a little bit, because he's, and even the way Alan's drawn. The way Alan's mask is, it doesn't look like the normal sort of superhero mask. It looks like it's one that's just tied round his head.
Which makes sense. I've never understood, man.
Yeah.
The rash you're going to get from pulling that much spirit gum off your face every night. And you're not going to have any eyebrows.
No.
But what I also like on the cover, which Harris does, Harris adapts his version of the heroes to match Matt Smith's.
Sure, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, definitely.
Especially with Alan having the mask around his face.
Yeah, that's right.
But I like on the next panel of the fight is you see Jay moving, and they're just like he's moving, and there's a very light red shape, and then a brighter red, then the really red one, and then him in complete focus. So basically we're seeing his after image is fading away.
Yeah, that's brilliant, isn't it? That's the colorist doing his work again. That really sells it.
Yeah, and then the middle panel is Alan building a net, and the green light of his construct has just turned everybody green.
Yeah.
And then Ted flying up on the last one, pulling a Ragdoll up from the ground, and his cosmic rod is just filling the room with light as it lifts him off the ground. Love it.
Yeah, brilliant.
And then we go back to the way they play with panels. I love it. It's certain pages. They're very square. They're very you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He when he doesn't need him, he doesn't use them. But when I think there's comics are done in panels, but the borders in these panels are a little bit wider than a normal comic panel.
Yeah, I can see that.
They're a
Yeah,
little
that's
more.
right.
Does it seem a
Yeah,
little more? Everything's a little more framed, like almost like the 3 pages look like you're looking at 3 different postcards of it.
yeah. It's almost as well like it seems to suggest maybe it kind of slows the pace down a little bit, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, because you're not moving as quickly, even though
Yeah,
it's milliseconds from one panel
yeah.
to the next.
I mean, compare the way that the grids that it's set off at page 19 with the full page dynamic splash of page 17.
Mm-hmm.
It's very striking. Obviously, I think deliberate, and I think it's designed to kind of make you really pay attention to the conversation and take everything that they're all saying. Very, very good.
Yeah. And there's a lot to like. I have a lot of thoughts on this. I don't have the page numbers because they didn't reprint the page numbers.
Right.
But when they're interrogating him, and Alan goes, the police are on their way, and Ted goes, yes, soon, 5-10 minutes. I called Billy, and Flash goes, Billy Adair, cop friend of mine. And then Ted goes, then it's over. Over and out, Ted. Feels good, huh? Says Jay. Jay being the optimist.
Yeah.
And then with the middle panel, that's 3 panels on the top and the 3 panels on the bottom. And the middle panel is a widescreen, and Ragdoll's looking down, so you can't see his eyes or face, but you can see the red of his nose.
Mm.
And he's going, no, not over. All of you will lament this night.
Yeah.
And he keeps looking down, so we haven't seen his full mask yet. And Alan goes, no prison built can hold you. Questioning it. You wouldn't be the first to say that, or the last. Never see the dawn rise outside of the prison walls again. And he has an answer, and I love this. I'm old. I'm tired. If I go inside, I'm aware too well that I will never get out again. But I have disciples. Too many for you to snare. Never. Not all of them. I have an army, and I'm their leader, their god. Whether I'm inside prison or not, I'll communicate with them. Then smuggle instructions out, or orders. And they ask him pertaining to Flash, Garrick. You have a Mrs. Garrick at home, don't you? Green Lantern, you have a broadcasting company full of employees that could just as easily be rubble if bombs were placed within. And Mr. Knight, Mr. Opal City, you have 2 sons. All those souls, these people you hold dear, I'll make my final peace with them. If I were you, I'm not the foolish villain I was. I think my actions, everything I've achieved this past month has proven that. I intended to go on proving that too, and the 3 of you will soon know. And it's just the look of terror on their faces when he threatens them.
Yeah.
It is.
And if you notice as well, that contrasted with the previous page, the gap between the panels, the borders between the panels, it's been filled in black.
Yeah. It's the next 2 pages.
Draws you into the sort of shadow of it all, and the dark room, and makes you concentrate on everything that's being said. Do you know, there's something I realised here very quickly. The point where Ted and Jay talk about Ted phoning Ted said he's phoned a policeman friend. In the original comic, right? Because I dug out the floppy, to use a term I don't like.
Yeah.
They used the name Bernie. And then I jumped over there to get the omnibus off the shelf to check. After you said they've changed it for the reprint.
What's it say in the original?
In the original it says Bernie, and Jay says Bernie O'Dare, cop friend of mine. And then they've changed it to Billy because that's obviously they've got that properly established that Billy O'Dare was the O'Dare's dad. So yeah.
Oh wow.
A little continuity, bit of tweaking in the reprinting, but we go back, so then it cuts back to the shade.
Yeah, I just want to say this before we leave. I want to compliment the one Robinson reinventing a very not fleshed out Golden Age hero. He does it with the mist, and he also is talking about aging. He talks about, and it's a very macho kind of thing about, am I a failure as a man? I don't know if it translates to women or other people, but this is his, like, he feels like he's been a failure his whole life, and this he's not. This is his piece de resistance. He has made himself a great man. And he's all in white with a little red. And I want to say something. There's a little bit of Keith Giffen in that face.
Yeah.
It's very much late Keith Giffen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially the two sort of landscape sort of close-up panels of his eyes being hooded. I mean, Giffen obviously was a big fan of the 9-panel grid structure, as we've said. He would use very constructed layouts on his Justice League and his Legion stuff.
Oh yeah.
And he was obviously influenced by Kirby, especially 70s Kirby.
And if you ever read his early stuff, which is glorious, I really am. His Defenders, his Challengers of the Unknown.
Oh, yes.
One of my screensavers is the Defenders, the Manhunter, Moon Knight, Nighthawk, Hulk, Valkyrie, and Hellcat coming at it.
Yep.
So back to what you're saying about the Shade. The Shade's finishing his story. And I think it's great. It's the investigation that follows of what happened next wasn't much of an investigation. The Ragdoll's tired joints still had some of their old dexterity, apparently. He slipped his bonds with the ease of old, at which point three heroes experienced a moment of confusion.
Yeah.
And this is where who set off the explosions? Or is that yellow and green is supposed to be them fighting?
Yeah, it suggests that Ted and Alan have both fired after him as he's running out the way or jumping out the way, and they've just unleashed big bursts of energy. And of course, this kind of hangs over the series until it gets resolved, and we're told who actually does deliver the killing blow. But we'll leave that until.
Yeah, because I remembered it differently. Like you actually, when I was rereading this last night, I remembered it differently. I remembered that they actually killed him.
Right. I wasn't sure what my memory of it was. I remember sort of because you see the explosions, and then you see the Shade writing, and then you see Alan, Jay, and Ted standing over the body. So you see the aftermath of it, and they're all sort of standing. Jay's helmet casting a shadow over his face, Alan looking a bit inscrutable, but Ted has a real deep shadow in his face. So I think that was maybe telling us something.
Yeah, and as I reread this, I'm going to look forward to relearning what happened, because I kind of don't remember. I really, and as like I said last time we were together, I've not read the last arc more than once.
Right. Oh, really?
Yeah, really. Maybe I was talking to Pete. But I've read everything like 2 or 3 times, but they never reprinted Greg Uganall.
Of course, yeah.
So I only read it maybe twice, but.
Well, those issues, I was when at the time that was being published, I was like, fully embracing it. I was getting tattoos and all that. I was growing sideburns. I was buying shirts. I wanted to be Jack Knight, So I was reading every issue 2 or 3 times before the next one came out. But when I read it all again during the pandemic, that was the first time I'd read it in a long, long time.
Yeah. God, I don't want to go ahead, but I've skipped. I've not read the issues between this and the last one I recorded, which was the Epitaph issue 4. But I've read 5 and 6 and 7 because we did them. Or 5 and 6. So
yeah,
I haven't read the Turk County. I haven't read the Turk County.
I've not read the circus ones yet either. I was going to wait until you covered them.
So I love this one. This is one that always pops in my head. That the one with the one with the Ragdoll. It's a great times past, and it is. And Matt Smith's art is amazing. I mean, I really do. It is perfect for this story.
Yeah, it's so different from the almost house style that DC sort of had at the time, which was kind of a halfway house between Dan Jurgens and the more extreme sort of stylings. It's nice. It's very unique. One thing I've just noticed actually is I sit here with my copy of issue 11. I've mentioned my friend Steve Higgins a couple of times. He's helped us out on the Earth 2 podcast, like yourself. His Conservative Voices, etc. Steve has a letter published in issue 11.
Oh, he does? Well, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
It's very interesting. Dear James, I was kind of upset by the request that Jack be gay. This is obviously a response to another letter. Just because it fitted in with his alternative characterization. Isn't that sort of stereotyping the homosexual community? I mean, it wouldn't have bothered me if he was gay. If you made him gay just because this one guy had asked, that would have been wrong. I'll be waiting vigilantly for the next issue. My stomach's cramping up from the pain of the wait. You are sick, James. Steve Higgins. And then he continues in a PS. Now, quite funny because I've never met Steve's brother, but Steve's brother and I have the same birthday.
Okay.
So every year I wish Nate a happy birthday, and Nate sends a message to me via Steve. But Steve continues, and Steve's, well, I would have been 22 at this point. Steve's, I think, 2 years younger than me. No, wait a minute, 4 years younger than me. So Steve would have been 18 at the time he was writing this letter. So this is very funny. Steve's one of my best friends. This is really interesting. P.S. I know I wrote in saying that I thought, so we'll have to keep an eye out for Steve's other letters.
Okay.
I know I wrote in saying that I thought that Jack's killing the Mist's son was out of character. Well, the other day I was sitting in my room and my younger brother came in and started to annoy me. When he had left, I thought about it for a second and then realised that I knew exactly where Jack was coming from. Sometimes your siblings can really get on your nerves, but other times they can really make you proud. I know that there are times when I want to punch my brother in the face, but there are also times when I want to beat the crap out of somebody who's insulting him. So basically, I'm trying to say that I get it now, and everything I wrote last time was semi-hypocritical, although I still think some of it was true. Steve, stop beating yourself up. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I'm a little brother. I understand that. My brothers used to beat the crap out of me, and then if anyone else had done it, they'd have beaten the crap out of them.
Yeah.
And I get it. I love this issue. It was a lot of fun.
It was. It was great. As I've said, and I'll reiterate. It was so nice to see Our Man and Dr. Midnight being used well by a writer who cares about them, rather than someone polishing them off by editorial edict. There's still good stories to be told with these guys, and this proves it.
And I think Robinson picks. Jack has superhero friends, but he has a very eclectic group of superhero friends that he develops over the series. You got Dr. Midnight, who will be a huge part of the mythos.
Yeah.
Our Man, Sue, and Ralph Digby.
He becomes good friends with Wesley Dodds as well.
Wesley Dodds, his hero.
Yeah. I was always disappointed that they never built a relationship between Jack and Kyle Rayner. Because Kyle was an artist and Jack was, had his artistic tendencies. I would have liked a team up between them at some point.
I would have liked to have seen a lot, because at this point they are giving us the third generation of heroes in a way.
Yeah.
So why wasn't there a book, instead of putting Jack in a Justice League book? I know why they didn't leave it. They just put him in it. What takes place between two panels in a late issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Imagine a Justice League that had Wally, Kyle,
Connor,
Jack, Connor,
Superboy Connell, yeah,
Connell, Cassidy, Cassie,
yeah,
Nightwing,
yeah, Bart Allen could have been involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the end of the series, Jeff Johns has created Stargirl.
Yeah, that's right.
And Robinson goes, "Let me fold her in."
Yeah. Yeah. The zero issue of Stars and Stripe was fantastic. It'll be interesting seeing how you map all of that continuity together.
Oh, don't get me, guys. Let me get. I don't know how.
Publication order is the best way to do it.
Well, no, and I am, but at some point, I'm going to run. What I think what happens when I run out of Prince Gavin,
yeah,
I'll insert something else.
Sure.
That may be. And folks, we were talking. Definitely, we're talking about Jeff Lemire's Dr. Star, who's now Dr. Andromeda. That will be something I'm going to cover because I think it deserves it.
Mm-hmm.
I am a Jeff Lemire. I'm trying to find all his stuff and read it. I've almost done with the first run of Sweet Tooth, which is amazing. I found his Green Arrow trade in the little library where I found some more Little Library comics,
Cool.
another Batman
Good.
and a Superboy, and an
Brilliant.
Archie's Madhouse.
Nice.
But stuff like that. But I definitely Stargirl's got to get done before when I get toward the end. I may have to do it. One because
Yeah.
I think it's maybe my favorite Jeff Johns series.
I would agree. Yeah.
I think
There's also the issues of JSA that Jack's involved in. You maybe have to look at them. Are you planning to look at them as well?
Oh yeah. Oh no. When I get to that, when I get closer to the issue where they kind of insert him, I may just do the trades.
Sure.
Because he's only in the first two arcs.
No, he's in. I think he's in up till about issue 16 or 17.
Yeah, he gets through 3. He gets through more. He battles more Drew, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's there for the opening story. He's there for the He's there for the one that has where they go after Extant.
That's right, he does.
And then there's the Johnny Sorrow story that they have a flashback to, which I think Ed appears in briefly.
Yeah, I love the Johnny Sorrow stuff. Really love this. I just love that Justice Society run is just a masterpiece.
It really is.
I know people have their issues with Mr. Johns, but you cannot. A lot of the stuff you complain about, sometimes they complain about. It's like y'all love his Justice Society, right?
Yeah.
You're just and I'm digging his Stargirl right now. Really, the Stargirl Lost Children is just beautiful.
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, I thought did I speak to you after last time we spoke was about a month ago? Had issue 4 come out yet? But
we haven't talked since 3 came out.
Right, the last page of issue 4. Did not see that coming. I was sat on the train reading it, and I think I was sure I told you this. I'm sure the entire carriage heard me gasping at the reveal of the Android Hourman.
What I love so much about the end of 4 is we've seen that. The end of 5, they still haven't told us why he's there.
Yeah.
Oh, it's wonderful storytelling. Wonderful storytelling.
I'm loving it.
Because we're going to all find it out at the end. It's awesome. And folks, if you haven't read it, stop listening.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Tom Pyre Hourman.
The
Tom Pyre Rags Morales Hourman is it been collected?
No.
If you can find it, and the last couple issues are hard to find.
Yes.
It had a low print run. It is a wonderful series. I do not know why they gave up on it. Probably because it was so well written and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
They probably just shot themselves in the foot. But that is something, you know what? I thought I don't know how long this is going to take me. Probably going to take a couple of years. Which is fine. But at some point I probably wouldn't. If I finish Starman, folks, and I'm still podcasting, I may just do a John's Justice Society.
Yes.
Yeah, because it needs to be talked about. I mean, it's already 30. Oh my God, how
20 odd years. Yeah.
20 odd years old. Yeah.
Started in '99. James was in the first, I think, half a dozen issues. Yeah.
Yeah, it was him. It was him and Goyer. It was him and Goyer, and then when they left, isn't it Robinson the one that said give it to Johns?
I think so.
Yeah.
And Jeff did it for a long, long time. A long, long time.
He did most of it because when he left, it really suffered.
It did. Yeah, I remember them getting Paul Levitz in for a few issues that were terrible in my opinion. But there we go.
Yeah, they were pretty because it was Perez. That's kind of like. I will say this: if you haven't read Paul Levitz and Alan Davis are doing this 5-issue, 6-issue Avengers story set between issues 8 and 9.
Ah.
You haven't read those?
Oh, is that the Battle Through Time or whatever it's called?
Yes.
Yeah, Peter had mentioned it, but he hadn't given me the details. See, Peter is a comic shop employee. He's very bad at making me aware of comics that might interest me.
It's Alan Davis penciling and inking himself, which I've never seen, and it's lovely. It's a little rougher. It's not as polished. He doesn't have Mark Farmer cleaning it up. And it's some of the best Paul Levitz I've read since he did Legion. And I haven't read his Doc Fate. I hadn't. But I read the first 2 issues and went, this is not the Paul Levitz I know.
Right.
But have you read it?
No. I know, but I'm now very, very intrigued at this this Avengers thing that you've just told me about. I've picked up his Dr. Fate. It'll be sitting around here somewhere.
I've heard nothing but good things about it, and I've absolutely loved it. And it's a little artsy. You know, it's a little more Vertigo-y than I thought it was.
Okay.
Because Khalid pays. I watched all of Young Justice cartoon.
Uh-huh.
It was very soap opera-y, but I kind of liked it. It was like reading a Marvel comic in the 70s and 80s. It was overly plotted. Characters would come in and out.
Right.
And everybody was in love with each other, and there was continuous. It was gloriously overwritten.
Yeah.
But Khalid's in that, and he's also a big part in John's new JSA book, which is moving at a very Bendis-like pace.
I think
I agree that there's some pacing issues for me.
Yeah, I read issue 2 and thought, right, I'm not going to read this again until at least another 2 or 3 issues come out. But then
I thought the latest issue worked better. And I think, somebody complained about Stargirl 3 being a lot of exposition. And it was. There was a lot, there was an info dump. But I think he was introducing so many characters, and he was letting Todd Nook just... I think it's the best work Todd Nook's done.
Oh, it's great. It's glorious. He's having a great time. I've always been a fan of Todd. I loved him on Young Justice.
I did not read Young Justice when it started.
It was glorious. Peter David is the absolute top of his game. I've got issue 3 of Justice Society, and I think have I read it? Yeah, I have read it now. But I saw something on Bleeding Cool again the other day saying that issue 4 has been delayed till this point, and issue 5 has been delayed till this point, and so it's just going to be like Doomsday Clock all over again, I think.
But that's not him. That's on them. I have a problem with it, man. Don't solicit something till it's done.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're going to do a 6-issue mini.
Yes.
And also, the penciler is working his tail off.
Yeah.
Because he's doing Danger Street.
Yeah.
Which is, I think it's my favorite. It's that and Gotham, the Tom King, Phil Hester Gotham City.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been reading that? Did Pete?
No, you told me about it. I'm going to investigate it. Yeah, I'm going to pick it.
Do you like Phil? I like Phil Hester. I like everything Phil Hester's ever done.
I can go about Phil Hester now and again. Yeah. What I'm liking about the Justice Society series is that he's getting Jerry Ordway in to do some pages. Like we've had Jerry Ordway drawing Dr. Fate, Jerry Ordway drawing the Unknown Soldier and Sergeant Rock and Per
No, it's perfect. No, I like the idea of using
different
different artists for different eras. Like when we saw the Justice Society of the 31st century, it was Scott Collins.
Yeah.
No, John's is smart. It also gives your guy some time to rest, and also you want to invoke, because I like the new timeline he's invented. That Power Girl and Star Spangled Kid joined in the 70s.
Yes.
And there's if you haven't read it, but there's a line where she's talking to just, Dead Man, Detective Chimp, and Khalid, Dr. Fate.
Right.
And she goes, and they ask her about, when she says, I'm the Huntress, she's a friend of the is the Huntress your mom? No, she's a friend of the family. And I went, oh, that's brilliant. That way you get to keep, both Huntresses.
Yes.
So, yeah, I like that. I went, But I'm, if you're an Earth 2 fan and you read Justice Society and you love all these Silver Age, Golden Age characters, you have to just deal with a lot of retroactive continuity, because 90% of what we've read of them is all retroactive continuity.
Yep, exactly. Especially after so long, because one thing I think we've talked about in the past is like Roy Thomas, bless him, was always a slave to what was published in the 40s, whereas the more modern writers are like, right, we'll use that as the basis, but we're not going to be slavish to it. We're going to do new stuff.
We're going to fill in between the lines, and what Robinson does with the Silver Age Starman Black Canary team ups.
Yes.
It doesn't change a thing on the page.
Absolutely.
But when you read, the first time I read those, when they do that reveal later in this run of how he tweaks it, I went back and read all those issues and went, that's why he shows up at her flower shop right as her husband's walking out.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh man, James, there's no coincidence. There's hanky panky. All right, folks. Hey, David, what can you... I do this on my Gallifrey's podcast, but I'm going to ask you, I don't think if I did this last few times around, anything you want to recommend to anybody right now?
well, we've just been bigging up Stargirl. I would like to recommend Peter David's Joe Fixit miniseries that he's doing for Marvel at the moment using the Grey Hulk. That's a comic I'm enjoying at the moment. I'm always sending people to listen to the Brandon Peters Show as my favourite podcast that I'm not involved in. Brandon he talks about movies and TV, and he's very positive, and he's very engaging and very addictive, and he's very enjoyable. And of course, I'll give a shout out to Peter and I's project, ongoing The Earth 2 podcast, which charts the pre-crisis DC Comics multiverse and talks about the legacy of its Golden Age heroes through the Silver and Bronze Age of comics.
It is the top of my queue whenever it comes out, except this week, folks. I'm saving it. It's going to be my walk tomorrow morning.
Awesome.
That's great. All right, folks. We'll be back. I'm recording this well in advance, so in 2 days there'll be me talking about 2 Legion stories, and on the weekend, whatever I've decided during that week is kind of what it's been. I'll be about halfway through my Danger Street first issue special show, which I'm enjoying. Mm-hmm. The one I'm about to record next weekend for me, which will have already been out, I'm finally get to do the Manhunter. It's issue 5 came out. I was behind, so I'm playing catch up on my comics. But if I had one thing, you know what I would recommend to y'all? We talked about it. Check out Jeff Lemire's Black Hammer. If you like Silver Age comics, you'll love it. Start with the initial trade where it's introduced. It's a love letter to the Silver Age. It's addictive, and he created an entire universe. I think it's right now there's like 20 trades out of the different characters and stuff. There's a lot about Black Hammer, who's a character who's dead in the first arc, and then you meet his daughter, becomes the next Black Hammer. But then he fills the universe with other heroes and villains. He does a war comic. He has a space hero called Colonel Cosmos, who's kind of basically Adam Strange as an old hippie on acid. And his buddy robot, and he has a best friend who's a robot.
Are you going to play him in the film then? Yeah.
Oh yeah, you saw that. I posted it. Someone said, "Who would you pick?" Me as Cap? Yeah, because I had my long crazy hippie beard, and I look just like him. He has the Martian Manhunter character is a police officer, and he's gay, and he's called a Barb Alien. Instead of barbarian, Barb Alien. And there's a Mary Marvel motif where basically, even though she's grown to be an old chain-smoking, bitter old woman who dates her archenemy, Dr. Shylock. But when she says the magic word, she turns into a little girl. And at one point, she gets stuck in the 3rd grade.
I'm going to have to start checking. You're really selling this to
It's
me.
Wonderful. It's really... If you've read any of Lemire's stuff, I know he did Justice League United, that had Stargirl.
I'm not sure. I know I've read some of it. I mean, I read the Dr. Star one that we talked about.
He did He's done a lot more stuff than I thought. Sweet Tooth is great. I've heard wonderful things about Essex County. I'm reading Paradise Road, which is a new one. He's got a trade with Jocko called Snow Angels.
Right.
I had the first 4 trade, but Gideon Falls, which is about a town.
Okay.
Yeah, he's an eclectic writer. He doesn't just do superheroes. He does horror and science fiction.
I must have done. Hang on. Let me just go and quickly have a peek over here. Hang on. Ugh.
He did a run of Green Arrow.
I must have. I think in my head I was confusing him with Jason Aaron for a second there. I will have done.
I like Jason Aaron, but he's a much better writer than Jason Aaron.
I've read so few new comics for the last few years that there'll be a lot of stuff that I won't have seen. But you've sold me on Black Hammer. I'm very intrigued now, especially what you're saying about the Mary Marvel type character. That sounds very interesting.
Yeah, they have to. But I don't want to spoil it for her. But she gets in trouble with the school every so often, and they have to do something. There's like a satanic character who's more like a mix between Swamp Thing, Miss Santana, and Xanadu.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's really weird. There's what's this called? Oh my God. I'm blanking on the Batman kind of character, but he's like Abe Smash.
Right.
But it's really cool, and they're trapped in a small town. They've stopped a crisis, and the surviving heroes wake up in a small town, and that's all there is, and they can't leave.
Oh, okay.
That's the initial arc, and then everything else branches out from that.
Okay.
And the last series was a bunch of one and done anthology. He also did like a Punisher character called Skulldigger.
Right. They did a Justice League crossover, didn't they?
Yeah, he did the Justice League United series that was coming out during early part of '52.
Yeah.
That had Adam Strange. It was going to be Justice League International, and it was Stargirl, Animal Man.
Yeah, Green Arrow and Martian Manhunter. Yeah. I think I read some of those.
I got them in hardcover, ex-library. Someone sold some library editions.
Yeah, I think I've got them in hardcover because they bring the Legion in later on as well.
There's a Legion story which I've not read.
Yeah.
Because I really was burnt out. I was not happy with a lot of the 52 stuff.
Same.
So Rebirth fixed some of it. I thought, and I don't really am normally negative, but I will never recommend the Scott Snyder Justice League. It went on forever. It was like Bendis's Secret Invasion.
Yeah.
Which is not a nice thing.
Yeah.
But I love Bendis. There's a lot of Bendis I really love, but I think that kind of writing is a early 2000s kind of, I want to write this epic thing with a lot of all these one and dones that don't really move the plot.
Of course.
Which I find it's like, give me something I can read 22 pages from beginning to end and entertain me.
Yeah.
So, all right, folks.
Isn't it? Yes.
Again, David, it's always a blast talking to you. Folks.
Look after yourself. See you soon.
I had a rough week, and Dave, this really cheered me up. And thank you so much. I appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Well, folks, as always, be smart, be safe, really be kind to people, because you don't know when you're not going to be able to be kind to someone because they're not there anymore. And read some comics. Best mental health medicine in the world.